Howdy folks, Andy Game Muzzer here, and this is Elite Dangerous, as always. And Thursday night is here, and which normally means we're taking part in the Drew Wagar Law Tour. However, we're sort of changing our tactic a little bit. It's still going to be a bit of still something to do with law, but Drew is having a chat with Kate Russell. And Kate Russell wrote the book Mostly Harmless. So we'll be having some Sidewinder shenanigans, hence the Sidewinder. And while Drew and Kate have a discussion of whatever it is they're talking about.
And good evening. Where's my hat?
Here he is.
Ah dear, there we go. How are we all doing? Welcome to the Elite Dangerous Law Tour once again. It is good to be here. So, yes, I've had to pop downstairs and clap the NHS, right? So I had to rush back up, and then I left my hat, which is just not right, okay? And the badge. What have I done with the badge? Badge. Quite right, guys. This is just sloppy behaviour, isn't it? Right, hang on, let me sort the badge out. Because I've got lots to do. It's all coming together at the last minute. There we go. Badge in place. There we go. Happy? You're very fussy, you lot. Yeah, you're good to make these demands of me, right? What can I do? Right. So, with no further ado, I have a special guest. Now I need to go and get him into the stream. I need to do some complicated stuff here. So bear with me for just a moment, right? Let me get to my full screen. So I've got my ship. I'm in the wrong place as well, for all sorts of reasons, but there we go. Right, so, right, how do I do this? I need to join the chat. Here we go. Kate, can you hear me? Ooh. What's happened here? I've got the right speakers. Should be picking me up. Why can't I hear Kate? Hang on. She says she's muted. Kate, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Brain malfunction. The question is as well, can you hear me okay? Because I'm not sure what microphone.
You sound a bit muffled, but I can hear you.
Okay, so I made a sound booth. Sorry, hello Twitch. I made myself a sound booth, as you may have seen, but of course that microphone that the Discord uses is now inside a phone box. So I need to switch to my camera.
See if that works.
Bear with me for that.
Of course, if we'd done this properly, right, we'd have done the proper test, but...
Okay.
Oh, is that back?
Okay. I think that's better, isn't it?
That sounds better. Can you boost your mic at all, or is that maximum power?
I try.
Quite a bit clear, people on the Twitch stream are saying.
Quite a bit, yeah. It's not coming from inside of.
I'm going to have to close my window as well. Apparently, people could hear bird song, which is a occupational hazard where I live at this time of day. So I'm just going to. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing at all.
Okay.
Brilliant. I think that's good. Right.
My input volume is at max. I can move the camera a bit closer to me. How's that?
Oh, that sounds better. Now we sound like we're sort of huddled up in a bar. That's much better.
Or I'm actually using my camera as a microphone.
Fantastic.
On
Everyone says that's better. That's brilliant. Right. Okay. Well, welcome to the stream, Kate. Thank you very much for turning up. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to hear from you. I haven't spoken for a while actually. So, fantastic. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me. It turns out I've not got a lot to do at the moment, so
kind of stuck with the whole Corona thing, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Literally all of my work disappeared. Well, 98% of my work disappeared over the course of about a week because it's mostly events based. But the BBC are keeping me off the streets with doing a weekly segment for them from home. But it's given me a lot of spare time, which in some ways it's good because you spend a lot of time sort of thinking about the other things that you wanted to do. Like I bought some foam and I made my cats a bed, and I'm now possibly going to design that bed to do a Kickstarter and sell as a product. I've built myself a sound booth.
Cool.
So, and today I've been making videos.
I saw you've been cooking as well.
Oh, well, yeah, I had a whole loaf of sourdough bread because I panic bought sourdough bread when I could get some.
Yeah.
I had a whole loaf of it that was going on. And so, yeah, made a huge one-pot pudding, which is the best.
Oh, I am impressed. I am impressed. So anyway, for those on the stream who don't know who Kate is, I mean, shame on you for a start, right? But Kate is. I mean, how actually you can introduce yourself, Kate. Who are you, and what do you do, and why are you famous?
I'm not sure I am famous. I have a very very small and dedicated crew of viewers, followers, whatever you want to call them, who have supported me in so many things through my life, which has allowed me to maintain the air of somebody who's famous around people who don't know better.
Okay, so a couple of people.
Myself back in my ears, by the way.
A couple of people on the stream have said infamous, not famous.
Yeah, well, there is that. But yeah, no. So I started out as a games journalist. All I ever wanted to do as a kid was be a writer, and I failed at education, so didn't really feel that there was much of an option for me. But I was really good with computers and games at a time when girls didn't.
Okay, so I mean, and I'm guessing you're sort of the same age-ish as me, right? We're sort of
1968.
Oh, so I'm younger than you. I'm happy now.
Whippersnapper. And actually, this lockdown as well, I was showing me I'm going grey because my roots are going through, and I actually quite like it.
Right. Oh, okay.
Quite distinguished looking.
I've been grey for a long time, but I've never done anything to my hair other than falling out.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember what we were talking about.
Just you. We're talking about you, Kate. We're talking about you.
Yeah, so I wanted to write, and I ended up writing for Games magazine in 1995. And
oh, so quite way back then, yeah.
In an echo, I don't know if that's something that.
Yeah, that's. Let me turn down my volume here just a tad. Well, I'll tell you what I will do actually. I will put my earphones in. I think what's happening is my speakers here are picking up. Oh, sorry, my mic is picking up my speakers. If that makes sense. If I put my earphones in.
I'll make it. It's just very distracting.
Hang on a moment. I'm almost there.
There's a woman telling the same story as me about
there we go.
Kind and thank you. Bless
there you go.
You.
Is that better? Hopefully, I can still hear you, and hopefully everybody on the stream can still hear you. But it should stop my mic picking up your voice. So fingers crossed that's worked.
Wonderful. I'm not used to hearing more than 2 voices at a time in a room at the moment, so that was.
It's a bit weird, isn't it? Excellent. Actually, everyone's saying on the sound quality is improved, so that's obviously a thing I'll have to bear in mind. It's a lot of technology, right? All this stuff.
I know. And
trying to get it to work.
Really, I was actually having a mini argument with. Well, not. I had made one of my very infrequent. Those of you who follow me on Twitter will know I very infrequently do I engage with anyone in a negative way on social media.
Yeah.
But there was an article that Joe Williams wrote for Telegraph. The headline was "Teachers should show courage and get back to the classroom," and it was just like, I know a primary school teacher, and she is doing so much more than just. You know, she's still taking on the responsibility of guiding and setting coursework. She's got to figure out the technology of how she does that, how she conveys that to parents. She's got to encourage stressed out, scared parents who've got their own set of things that they're dealing with at home. And she's also making regular calls to at-risk kids. And when she doesn't get replies, putting herself in harm's way to go and physically house call
and check things out.
The kid is okay. So it's just. Everybody's dealing with so many kind of crazy aspects that are completely new to them, and of course I'm lucky in my position because this is what I've been doing for the best part of my career, so I really feel like in a lucky position to be able to do the segments for Click as well, just to be able to tell people in some ways, just say relax, it's okay.
Permission to sort of not do everything and be perfect at everything straight away, right?
Yeah, one step at a time. Do one thing, get comfortable with it, do the next thing. Expand into how you use tech. But tech
even 2 years ago, technology, everyone was like, oh, it'll be the death of us, it's going to be the end of humanity. But where would we be without it today?
Yeah, no, exactly. We've been. I mean, if this had happened even 10 years ago, right, it would have been really tricky to manage that sort of stuff.
Well, not only that, but the first we would have known about it, likely, would have been when it was ravaging our direct communities, because we didn't have the mass communication across the globe, mass communication. But we've got windows into the world anywhere, and so you were able to see it sort of like coming, if you like, in a way that we couldn't have 10 years ago as well.
Yeah, all the communication and stuff that we have, right?
Yeah.
So
the BBC's been, I mean, the lockdown's been how long now in the UK? 4 weeks?
4 weeks. Yeah, it feels like a long time to.
Well, it's been longer for me. I've been 2 months now, because
really?
the
of course,
BBC stopped doing filming.
Yeah.
Way before the lockdown, and of course all the events cancelled way before the lockdown happened. So,
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So, well, it's good to know you're safe. And you're still able to. So, I mean, are you able to do anything, given that your work has dried up? I mean, how are you occupying your time?
Well, yeah, I mean, luckily the BBC got in touch with me, because I actually wrote a very sort of did a tweet about 8 weeks ago going, well, that's the last 2 days' work that I've got in my diary in like forever.
Yep.
Gone. So yay.
Wow, yeah.
And my boss at the BBC saw that and got in touch with me a couple of days later and said, we're also now doing the show remotely, so let's get you involved, and let's bring back Webscape, which was always a very popular segment where I sort of just trawled the web for the latest things that were interesting, apps and websites and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
And so yeah, so I've got a day and a half a week of that, doing that. And a few things are coming back. I've built this sort of mini sound studio, which isn't a perfect recording studio, but it's good enough for most sort of like podcast quality stuff. And so I'm recording a podcast with BT next week on cybersecurity.
Okay, cool.
And I've also been doing voluntary work with Teen Tech, Maggie Philbin's organisation, preparing virtual events for them to keep the kids occupied. So we're doing one next week on game design, and I've just been making videos today and putting together clips and stuff. So so we're going to be doing a live stream of our innovation sessions that we usually go to their schools to do.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so I mean, it's reinventing stuff that you would do in person, but kind of doing it online, which of course, I suppose with your experience, you're really well placed to translate it, I imagine.
Well, exactly. And you know what? I was talking with I'm going to name drop like a badass right now. I was chatting with Maggie Philbin the other day, and
I've had one tweet from Maggie Philbin. That's my claim to fame.
I consider her a good friend, which I'm just so grateful for.
Yep.
But yeah, so we were chatting because we were sort of planning these virtual sessions with the schools, and she was saying we've been wanting to do these virtual sessions for such a long time, because we'd be able to reach so many more schools, in such harder conditions, because it's a lot of money and they've got limited grants and stuff like that to go out and physically do it. But virtual events is kind of like the perfect solution, but getting people on board with engaging in a virtual event was going to be 90% of the battle, right? We know we've got the technology to make it. We've been doing streaming. We know how to deliver the content. The problem has always been, how do we get people to sign on? How do we get people to buy into the idea of virtually attending an event? And of course, after this, there's going to be no problem.
Everyone knows how it works,
like,
right?
Oh yeah, like Zoom, okay.
Yeah, everyone's going to be set up for it and have some experience in running it, right? Yeah.
So buy shares in virtual events companies right now, people.
That's going to be good. Fantastic.
And when you do, get them to employ me, because
I've got
no work.
Yeah. Fantastic. Right, just for the benefit of everybody on the stream, so we are I don't know if you've been following what I've been doing on this game, but basically it's a sort of old-timers lore tour of Elite Dangerous, right? So we'll be going around places of interest in the game and learning about a bit of the history in the background. So today, in honour of you, obviously, we're going to Slough.
Yay! I'm playing the stream, so I can see you on the stream.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so this is just a just for all the commanders in the private groups and open and solo mode and on the Xbox and PS3 and on PC. We are heading to the Vespa M4 Vespa-M4 system.
Lovely.
And we will all be
It's
rendezvousing.
a wonderful part of the galaxy.
It is Slough. Or Slough. Slough, as my American friends call it.
Yeah, watch out for sentient fridges and the odd bio waste canister that's still floating around from our this
is all background we need to know about, right? Okay, so yeah, the law. This is all the law. So this stream, we're going to be a bit. This stream is a little bit less formal than the ones I have been doing, because we've kind of been being a tiny little bit po-faced in the last few streams, talking about the law and doing it properly, right? Other than sort of asking about in the game and doing things anyway. But
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of, this is a bit more of a chill out stream anyway. So we're going to Slough. I can already see a whole bunch of people about anyway. So there's lots of people here for Slough. But why Slough?
Well, can I first say I'm so sorry that I'm not there with you in game.
Of course you can, yeah.
I have not played Elite for such a long time, and
My browser's encountered an
keyboard
error.
and mouse only, and that just would be
There we go.
tragedy.
We're back.
But yeah, so I
I can see
there's
thousands of
one-
ships all parked outside the station. I'm just coming in here.
That's what happens. That'll be the Hammers of Slough.
Excellent.
Right there, which is my wonderful, wonderful family in Elite, who've been following and supporting Slough for
ever since
6 years.
yeah, ever since the game. It's a long time ago now, isn't it? Yeah. Because I remember when I first when we started when I first met you really online, and then in real life, was through the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter. We'll get to that obviously, but yeah, that's it's a long time ago, right?
yeah, many years, and they'll all enjoy being out there, and I hope that you might run a demolition derby for them later.
Well, I'm hoping to take some
Tradition
instructions, so
comes
I am going to send some instructions, because everyone's turned up here in some very snazzy looking ships. So we're going to have to dish out some instructions, right, about Sidewinders in a bit, but we'll get there, because that's all part of the meta of this whole place, right, about Slough and stuff. There are literally dozens of ships here, all in your honour. So hopefully you'll get that on the stream in a moment when you catch up. There's loads of ships flying around. So it's awesome. The TIAB scanner is full of ships, which is awesome. So
I can see them. They're wonderful. There's actually a point of interest as well in the Vespa
is there? Right,
system, very very close to Slough. It is the Cheese Wheel, which is a location in my book.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow. So did Michael Brooks drop that in? We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're already talking about the book. Michael Brooks dropped that. Oh, we'll go and check that out actually in a bit. So that's quite cool. Okay.
Yeah. So so I don't know where you want to start really.
Yeah. I mean, Slough. I mean, I've been to Slough, and it's not the most salubrious place on the planet. I'm just wondering.
Well, it's probably not the right place to start. I think maybe the best.
Where should we start?
I got into. I could take you back to 1984.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you played the original game, right? You're the same as me in the sense that way back when. Yeah.
I did. I'll confess, I did it mainly initially as a means to annoy my brother because it was his computer and he didn't want me playing the game. But then I got fascinated by the whole concept, not so much of the game, but the concept of there being this virtual world within a box that was sitting on the table in the kitchen as we had the computer at that point. And it was that kind of, I remember one day sort of trying to fly to find the edge of it because I couldn't quite compute. My brain couldn't quite connect that there wasn't an end to it, and I think I flew for about 2 hours with my finger on the W button just in one direction, and it didn't end, and everything was different, and there were different systems and different NPCs flew by, and I was just like mind kind of blown.
Because I mean I remember the same experience, not quite about flying in all sorts of directions, but I remember seeing the spinning cobra on the start screen, right, and thinking to myself, but that's not possible. You can't do that on these computers. How's it been done? And then you look at the galaxy, right? It had like, what was it, 2,000 and something stars per galaxy, and there were 8 galaxies, and then each of them had a description, didn't they, of some wacky stuff. And then you multiplied that all up, and that was more than the memory of the computer. And then your brain went, bzz.
Yeah, they managed to fit a 400 billion star galaxy onto 22 kilobytes of BBC Micro
I know,
memory.
and I remember going, but how, right? right? At the genius of it at the time. Yeah.
A really nice analogy. I know this off the top of my head because I've just been editing the video for the kids today. But you could fit over 64 million of the original Elite games on your average smartphone today.
64 million.
Yes. Copies of Elite.
Excellent. But that's, yeah, I mean, that's just insane, isn't it? What technology's done. But
yeah. So I was sort of, it was Elite that sparked my interest in computers. From playing Elite, I then sort of looked at basic programming, and I just got curious, and I never went on to learn much programming, but I just got curious about the role that computers were playing in our lives, and it was something that I felt comfortable learning about on my own when I wasn't really engaging with school.
Yeah. So did you have friends at school who were into computers at all? Was it kind of just a lone thing for you doing? Because that must have been quite tricky. You know, I'm thinking back to the 80s. I had friends at school who were all geeky, kind of, greasy, sporty boys, right? We were all the same. We kind of had a bit of a, we had a bit of a, camaraderie in the sense that we were all geeky, spotty boys together. But that must have been a bit more tricky for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I went to a girls' school from my teenage onwards. But we'd moved around a lot when I was younger, so I was never really a friend kind of person. Lots of people liked me, don't get me wrong, and I was usually the joker at the centre of causing whatever havoc was going on in the school.
Right, okay. So you were a bit of a troublesome. Right, okay. Excellent.
I did it for the laughs, Stuff I did to try and make people laugh, and it was normally quite disruptive. So I wasn't disliked, but I didn't really have any friends. I used to go home and sort of like entertain myself, make up stories, when I was younger, I would make up little plays with my Smurfs and act them out and do all the dialogue and everything and build little sets in my bedroom.
Okay.
And then I got into computers and I would do that. I was an awkward child.
But you played the original game, so were you a big fan of the whole kind of space, shoot things and or was it more the kind of cleverness of the game that kind of got you in the first place?
Yeah, it was the newness, and it was the world and the story within the world, I think, more than anything. And I became a gamer, and I did play the other iterations of Elite, but not in any kind of obsessive way. I kind of
So you knew they were there.
Kind of, let's try that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's okay, but I didn't really super get into it. But I kind of more gravitated from that point to the sort of story-driven, kind of immersive world kind of things.
Which was a thing that was a bit different about Elite as well, wasn't it? We had a game, a book that sort of set the story, right, with the Dark Wheel.
Exactly.
And, all that.
Exactly. I think that was missing from the other iterations until Elite Dangerous, where they obviously put more production value into thinking about the characters and whatnot. So when they ran their Kickstarter, and I'd already been doing BBC Click for a while, and so had a sort of growing gathering of online followers who were also following the Kickstarter, and I'd been aware of the Kickstarter. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll pitch in and I'll have a go at that. But one of the tiers was the writing.
The writer's pack, right? Yeah.
And people started kind of nervling me in Twitter, going, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this.
So to put this in context, this was back in 2014, was it? No, 2013, wasn't it? Was it the end of 2013? Yeah, so, and we hadn't heard anything about Elite for years, because when the third game, I think, came out in 95, right? And so then it was silence.
It was 21 years.
21 years. That's insane, isn't it?
Waiting for it.
Yeah. And we called it Elite 4, and it was. I remember. I'm on record somewhere on the Frontier forum actually of having basically said, it's never going to happen, guys. It's been too long. It's been a generation. They've either forgotten about it or they're just never going to get around to it. And then suddenly, almost out of nowhere, it seemed. I mean, I didn't have any advance warning of it. Possibly a bit like you. I got tweets and things from my friends who knew I was into the old game, saying that Elite's on the BBC News. Have you seen it? And I'm like, what? What do you mean it's on the news? And it was, right? There was a BBC article saying Elite's back and they're kickstarting. I had no idea what a Kickstarter was, so I clicked on it and went, well, this is the genuine thing. They're going to do it. it's like immediately piled in there to see what all the fuss was about, right? Along with about 6 billion other people, right?
Yeah. And I think it really marked as well for me a shift in the games industry, because up until not too recently, gaming communities have had such a bad kind of reputation. The media only really sort of tell the stories of the Gamergates and the horrible.
Yeah, all the really bad stuff. Yeah.
And they don't see the rest of it going on. So they've had this kind of like overarching bad kind of, but also I think games have been played in large groups of young people, and so there is that kind of, they haven't got as much life experience, they haven't built as much empathy for their fellow man, etc.
Yep.
But Elite saw, I think, thousands, tens of thousands of people who were avid gamers as a kid, who kind of gave it up because they got jobs, families, mortgages, kids. You can't game.
That's right, because we were all players of Elite in our teenage years, right? And then,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I missed the second.
I'm going to get back into games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I missed the second and third Elite games, apart from occasionally reading about them in magazines, right? Because I was at university getting my first job, and I didn't have time to play games then. I had to do some work.
Exactly. But we're all coming back now, and
that's right. And then suddenly we're all relatively old, and coming back, and then suddenly Elite pops back onto the scene, and then all the kind of, oh my gosh, it's Elite, it was back. And there's probably a lot of people on the stream who, dare I say, weren't even born then. Right?
Yeah.
There are definitely a few familiar old timers on the stream, I know as well, but there were quite a few people who are playing Elite Dangerous now who aren't necessarily, but they may have heard of the previous game, or knew that it was based on a game from all those years ago, but not everyone was even aware of it. And that's one of the things I've been doing on this lore tour, is to try and celebrate the heritage of this game, because it spans almost 40 years now, right?
I know, exactly. Thrice just said in chat, no wonder there are so many boomer commanders. But it's true, but and I think for a lot of people, they kind of came back to Elite, and then it reminded them of how much fun gaming was. And of course, as you get older, you have a bit more time. The kids are a bit older; they can put themselves to bed, and so you've got that time.
Well, my own. I mean, you've met my two sons. I mean, they're big, enormous lads now, right? They're much bigger than me. But they've played a game. They play lots of other games, but they've enjoyed playing Elite. But for them, it's Dad's game of as my son Joshua called it once, the line game. In his classic young sort of way. Oh yeah, that one with all the lines. No, that's vector graphics, my son.
Thank you, Chris Viking, for pointing that out. We're Gen X, not boomers.
Oh yeah, no, we should be careful of that, shouldn't we? Yeah, no, we're not quite that old, are we? We're definitely Gen X, which I think is sort of got a coolness to it. I think we're kind of sandwiched in between other generations, aren't we? So we'll stick with that. I think that's a good thing. So what was your thought when you? I mean, were you contacted by friends or people in the industry about the Kickstarter? Did you know it was coming or anything like that?
Hang on a second. Alexa, turn on studio. Sorry, she keeps turning the lights off on me.
Okay.
No, I don't know that.
Alexa, turn on studio. Thank you.
Shall I get everybody on the chat to shout, Alexa, turn on studio?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I just wondered, how did you find out about the Kickstarter back in 2013?
Oh, so I was aware.
You were
of
in the
it
industry, right? You.
Yeah. I was aware of it just from. I think I'd read an article on one of the sites that I read, or something, Tech Radar or something about it. So I was like, oh yeah, excellent. I'll be following that. I'll definitely be pitching in for that. But I hadn't really thought about it. But at the time as well, I was just in the middle of writing my first book that was going to be published. I'd managed to persuade a publisher, Crimson Publishing, to give me an advance and to write a book about the internet, which sounds a bit crazy, but it's called Working the Cloud, and it was basically just a book of tools and resources that I found to help people to do the stuff that you do in a business, but do it at home, just on your computer. So and I was halfway through writing that, and people were like, "Oh, you should do the writer's pack. You should." I was like, "Oh, I can't. I'm literally killing myself doing this book, because you don't get paid a lot. Doing it as well as sort of like doing all the rest of the work that I do, and I've got a deadline, and when I finish this, I kind of am going to want to just not write for a bit.
Right,
And
yeah, because it's a lot of work
everyone's
writing a book, right? Isn't it? It's a lot of work.
Yes, especially like, I mean, fiction is a lot of work and it's a lot of heart, but writing a factual book, there's a lot of research as well, and a lot of sort of fact checking and stuff. So it was quite intense, and I was kind of on the deadline at the point, but when I looked at it, so many people, and I thank you to all of those people who did keep pestering me, but so many people pestered me that I sort of read the thing in more detail.
Yep.
And I didn't have time to plan anything, and I thought, you know what, no one's going to support me. And you were doing a Kickstarter, because that was it, because basically everyone was saying you should kickstart, you know, look at what Drew's done, look at this, that, and the other. And I kind of looked around at what you guys were doing, and I was like, well, no one's going to want to help me buy this because I can't plan a story ahead of time. So, but I'll give it a go. You know, I'll put it up there and see what happens. And I don't recall the text from my Kickstarter, but the opening text actually says something along the lines of, I have no idea what the story is going to be about. All I know is it's going to be based in the game world and 60,000 words.
Yep. Yeah, no,
I'm a huge fan, you know, this, that, and the other. If you want to support me, then do it. And actually, one of the reward tiers was a focus group. If you paid £101, I had 10 people in a focus group that actually helped me with some ideas, because I literally, when I closed the Kickstarter and had the money to make not only the book but the audiobook as well, I didn't have a clue what the story was going to be about.
But now you're signed up, you've got to do it, right? You know, so no going back. You've got some money. Yeah, I know. I remember that Kickstarter because I went on it and you know, saw the right. I actually sent a cheeky email before the. I don't know if you remember this, but when the Kickstarter first came out, the writers' pack wasn't one of the pledge awards, I sent, as the Kickstarter first came out, I sent a cheeky email to David Braben, having sort of reverse engineered his email address from the Frontier website, saying, yeah, there used to be a book that came with the original Elite. Is there any chance to audition to write a book for the new one, this Elite Dangerous thing that you've got planning? Now, I didn't ever get a response to that email, but coincidentally, maybe, and it may just be a complete coincidence, but 2 days after that is when the writer's pack appeared. So I don't know. I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but they thought, maybe we could make some money out of this.
I know, speaking from Michael as well, I don't think they thoroughly planned it, because I don't think they even considered the workload.
No, because it was a lot, right?
Allowing 10 completely randomly selected writers. And to poor old Michael Brooks
he suffered a lot.
So much work to do.
Oh, poor fella. I do feel sorry for him. But I mean, I looked at it, and of course it was $4.5 grand, right? And I said to myself, I haven't got $4.5 grand to pledge on that. And so one of my friends on a fan site basically said to me, well, why don't you start a Kickstarter to fund a pledge so that you can put a pledge on another Kickstarter? And I said, that's a stupid idea. That won't work.
I remember actually reading a story about it in, again, one of the game portals that I frequent, basically saying, Kickstarter to fund.
I know, it's like a Ponzi scheme. That's right. What's going on there? Drew Wagar is obviously a crook. There's lots. I've saved them actually on my you know, kind of on my hard drive for posterity, of all the press articles that came out about it, because there were quite a few. It suddenly got picked up, and then it spreads a bit, doesn't it? And I've got, you know, man starts Kickstarter to fund Kickstarter. Ponzi scheme online, Drew Wagar, the author you've never heard of, all this sort of stuff. And then, but it worked, right? Because I
not only did it work, but you opened the floodgates.
Yeah, and suddenly lots of other people tried doing it, didn't they? And there were Kickstarters here, and you did one, and you know, a few of the other people did one, and there was one on Indiegogo, and you know, suddenly there were like all these pledges rolling in.
Well, you know the thing as well, I have a little bit of a theory, and it's kind of a cheeky theory, so please don't take me seriously, audience, although it's kind of serious. The core audience for Elite Dangerous, not only are they returning gamers with a little bit of kind of spare time, but a majority of them, because they were really super early adopters of technology, a majority of them work in IT, in probably reasonably well paid jobs. And so there was an awful lot of disposable income floating around during that Kickstarter with nowhere else to go. Like, once you'd got the top tier, you know, and the t-shirt and everything else that you wanted from the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter, there was still like a month of it to run.
That's
so you still had your credit card there, and then suddenly we're like, hey, you can put money into this Elite Dangerous project, and how about this Elite Dangerous? And everyone's like, yay!
And so people did go for it, right? It did, and it you know, with the I was lucky because my Kickstarter got funded, I think, in a few days. I can't remember exactly how much it was. I think yours went in hours, didn't it? I think yours was like super fast.
It went really quickly, and I was absolutely floored and flabbergasted.
It's yeah, and then you suddenly think, my God, there really is a community out there who, you know, are massive fans of this game. You didn't realise how many people. I mean, and it's interesting even now. I mean, I've been doing a bit of work for a client up in, you know, up in the Midlands, just sort of remotely over Zoom and stuff, things like this. But I sent out an email to them just introducing myself, saying I'm here to do this review for you. And two people emailed back saying, "Are you Drew Wagar from Elite Dangerous?" So it's like, oh my God, I'm famous, kind of. You know, and there's so many people out there who, especially in the IT world, right, who played a version of Elite at some point in their life, and it's a big deal. Exactly. It's a big deal, right? Because the game has that longevity to it, all the way back to '84 and everything since.
Yeah, exactly. And as I've learned, I think, of the followers and the people who've supported us through these books, you know, a lot of them also probably partly did it to try and make me suffer. I think that was
excellent. So, I mean, tell us about. I mean, you say you did a Kickstarter. Did you have any idea? You sort of said you haven't had any idea. You must have had some kernel of an idea, thinking.
Well, no, literally, because I didn't. I honestly, if you read, I don't know if I can pull up the text of the Kickstarter, but I genuinely wrote it not having any, you know, I was like, really? I'm going to do this because why not? But no one's going to want to support me because I've no idea what the story's about, and I don't have time to think about it now.
Yep.
And I wasn't due to finish writing my business book, and I was literally up against it. It was that, you know, the end of, if you're ever on a deadline for writing, the last few months you're always cramming. So I was like, I don't have time to even think about it until after that date. But you know, if I get funded, then I'll think about it at that date. And so it was, I think, a month after I got funded was the date that I finished my business book, handed it off, and I was just sat down. I was like, right, okay, what the hell am I going to write about? So I was like,
I've got to honour this pledge, right? Because the Kickstarter signs you up to terms and conditions, right? You know, you've got to deliver something or you get into trouble, right? You're opening yourself to being sued and stuff for not delivering, which is a problem.
And there's also, so I sort of opened up the writer's pledge, and I'm like, what have I got? What am I working with here? Okay, I get to name a planet and I get to name a solar system. Right, okay, great.
Which is cool, right? Because I remember thinking how awesome will that be to have a solar system named after you, right? Or whatever you want it to be. A
planet, a space station, and a solar system.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, it would be really funny to have, because you know, space stations are normally called something orbital. I was like thinking it would be really funny to have a space station called Slough Orbital. And I'm like, okay, so that means I've got a planet called Slough. Fine.
So, I'm looking at it right now. It's a beautiful, resplendent planet. The planet Slough.
Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, actually. That's a little bit of a gripe, because if you know the book.
Yeah. It's a sort of polluted, purpley world, isn't it?
It is, and it's a penal colony. So basically, I sort of, once I decided I was going to name my planet Slough, I'm like, okay, what kind of planet would Slough be? I'm like, okay, well, obviously it'd be depressing. It would be somewhere that you wouldn't want to go to. It would be somewhere with a really heavy atmosphere that just like made your bones sag. So there we are. I've got a 1.5 times.
Oh, so the gravity is like super high, right? Yep.
It's super high. It's a penal colony. So you have to do one of the bits. They've got sort of like these centrifuge that kind of train your body. The people who have to go and work down in the penal colony. Underneath the surface, they have to do centrifugal training to increase their bone mass so that they can actually stand the pressure.
Up.
Yeah. But the criminals are sent down there without any training, so they're kind of like all wibbly and just really
so that's quite a punishment then. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It makes them easy to control and stuff like that as well. But that's the kind of like the history behind Slough. Okay,
but why Slough? Why did you, of all the places in all the world, you chose Slough to immortalise in the game? Why Slough?
Because it allowed me to name my space station Slough Orbital. It is as simple as that.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah, genuinely, it's as simple as that. I mean, there is another slight sort of story in the history of Slough, in that the reason that I thought Slough as a planet would be the way that I envisaged it was many, many years ago, I went to Slough shopping centre on a rainy afternoon, and a man from the Church of Scientology tried to recruit me inside a doorway outside Greg's Bakery. It was rainy and I was sheltering in a doorway, and this man was sort of asked me to come and do a book review. He said, would you like to come and do a book review? And I was like, huh? And he said, you'll get a cup of tea and a biscuit. And I was like, oh, okay. So I followed him upstairs, sat me down with a cup of tea and a biscuit, gave me this book, and it was Church of Scientology.
Wow. And you're thinking, oh my God, I've got to get out of here. Well, no, you didn't want to think Jesus Christ. That's probably not quite the right.
Yeah, exactly.
You conjure up some other deity, perhaps. Yeah.
So that kind of like just kind of added to the notion that Slough. But I did genuinely, the whole premise of the book began because I wanted to, because I thought it would be funny to name a space station Slough.
Right. Okay. And immortalise that forever in the universe. Yeah. Exactly right.
And then I had to invent a story from there. So that was my seed of inspiration. It was like, okay, what would happen there? Oh, okay. Came up with this Angel Rose. She's kind of like just a disaster. She does everything wrong. She's got a really bad attitude. She's everything that I would be if I didn't have this filter.
Right.
On
Okay.
me. This
So
kind of like
is
social filter that stops me from being that one.
So is she kind of your alter ego in the Elite Dangerous world? Is she a not aspirational? That's not the right word. I'm just trying to think. You know, if you had the freedom to be who you could be for a period of time, would you be Angel Rose? Is
oh that... God no, no, I wouldn't. if I guess Angel Rose is just all the bad things that I could be if I let myself be, and it just reminds me that I'm grateful that I'm not those bad things.
She's a possible alternate version of you that you don't want to be.
Yeah, that I'm holding at bay. I've locked her in. I've locked all those qualities into that character, and she's holding them at bay for me. But yeah, she's a bit of a disaster area, but she means well.
Right. And is she an assassin, or is she?
No, she's just an accident.
She's
literally everything that happens to her, she kind of becomes. It has to join with this band of space pirates because she gets herself in a situation, and then it just one thing just snowballs into the other, and none of it. She doesn't do any of it. It's a bit like she goes through life kind of like falling from precipice to precipice.
Right.
Like she's just saying, and now she's tripped over and she's in that situation. So none of it is really purposeful.
Yeah.
She's just, she's
just tripping from one disaster to the next. And she's got an awful mother. I remember reading that.
She's got a dreadful mother, but she's also she ends up being indentured to a financier and having this dreadful robot follow her around to make sure that she is not make sure she's being frugal and not endangering.
Right.
The investors' kind of money investment.
So was it were you inspired, I suppose, to write an Elite Dangerous story by the fact that Elite had this narrative history? Because I mean, obviously your books are like a comedy, kind of. It's got a sort of Douglas Adams-esqueness to it, I would say.
It's a dark comedy.
A dark comedy, right? And the Elite universe always had that Douglas Adams-y bit to it, right? With the edible poets and and Mostly Harmless, right? Is a name that one of Douglas Adams' books was Mostly Harmless, right? As well. And Mostly Harmless is a rank in the game, of course. So there's lots of little connections there.
No, exactly, and actually. Again, a lot of the plot line came from this Kickstarter, because my Kickstarter had the various different tiers, and one of the tiers was you could name a character that I promised I would murder in a very gruesome way within the pages of the book.
Now I remember this. There was a really, I mean, there was lots of places where I remember. I think it was. I got a feeling it was me and Stephen Usher, and we were reading your book. And we both got to, I think there's a chapter near the middle with something to do with the belt. And I remember us both were reading the same part of the story. And both sort of just crossed our legs at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that was exactly my intent as I was writing those passages. Like literally, physically, that's what I was in my head. I was trying to elicit that kind of reaction. So that's good. I'm
Excellent.
pleased that
It was kind of like, and seeing a side to you that we hadn't necessarily seen before.
I know. Well, I've written short stories for a long time, and I love to do a really dark, twisted tale too. So I love horror, and I love zombie games, and it's just that's my kind of beat. So it was a nice opportunity to express that side of my creativity. But I did, again, it was a lot of the story was driven by the stuff that I had to do. I also had 200. I had to mention 200 people by name somewhere in the book, even if
you had to do those things as well.
Part of their name, and so I had all sorts of weird things like that. But big Douglas Adams fan. Of course, was excited by the world that we got to play within in terms of the space. It was a shame, and as I'm sure you'll agree, it was a shame that we didn't get to play the game before writing the kind of
some of the things,
space combat scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Kate, I'll come back to that in just a minute. I'm just going to give some instructions to everybody who's on the stream in the game and various other bits and pieces. What I'd like everybody to do, I can see thousands of billions of ships flying around outside, and hopefully everybody's been getting some great screenshots and stuff, and I've left the external camera and other various bits. What I would like everybody to do, there is a reason for mucky about in Slough, and that's to do with sidewinders. Now, what I'd like to encourage everybody who's willing, you don't have to do it, but if you want to join in with this, we're going to muck about, is proceed.
Stream's run into issues again. Don't know why this is happening, but we'll do a refresh.
Base spec Sidewinder, presumably E-rated, no shields, just whatever it comes with, right? Okay, so nothing at all, right? Okay, so that's instructions.
You'll need your shields initially when you're just sort of like preparing, but actually the whole point of the demolition derby is you play it with shields off. So
right, okay. So right, so we'll get everyone on stream. This is the light-hearted part. I think we're going to do a demolition derby, which I think I've taken part in one once before, but I'm by no means an expert. So I expect Kate to give me some.
Are you going to compete? Who's going to be the judge? You kind of have to sit on the rim and. Well, maybe
given it's I'm the stream, maybe I should do the judging. I mean, I've done this before, so I'm okay, right? So. Maybe I should do the judging. So anybody who wants to take part, get inside Slough Orbital now. Park your current vessel. Buy yourself a stock, utterly base vanilla model Sidewinder, and then report back out for duty. Right.
Army Squirrel wants to know how to get into the instance. Is there anyone who can group with Army Squirrel?
Army Squirrel.
And Playpy can't instance either.
We got I've got one other gap on my wing here, so maybe if I can probably do one of those myself.
Plex, I believe Slough is an anarchy now, so although it is wise always to turn your report crimes off, I don't think anyone's going to help you out.
It's not going to do anything.
In Slough anymore.
Billy,
is that still the case? Is Slough still an anarchy?
I don't know. I have to look it up. I can't see the link on my list of contacts. There's billions of people
Agar
here.
is saying they can't get in as well.
Oh, so annoying.
And Stephen Usher.
Oh no, we've got to have Stephen. Dear oh dear, why can't I normally can see Stephen on my friends list, but I can't see him either.
This was always, so we do...
This is always a problem with the game, right? All this peer-to-peer.
So for those of you who wonder what on earth we're doing, the group that gathered around and supported me through the Kickstarter became the Hammers of Slough, and we kind of hang around in Slough. And one of the things that we are famous for doing is Demolition Derby, which everyone gets the Sidewinder. They go into the kind of like the bowl inside the space station entrance by around the toast rack, and they fly round in circles at each other until there's only one person standing. So literally a demolition derby.
Literally,
And
so
always when we do demo derbies, through the first 10 minutes are spent in everyone.
yeah, so that's we'll have to kind of see if we can play. Now I've managed to get Stephen Husher onto my wing, so that's a thing. I'm just going to position myself in front of the entrance so I can sort of see the whole combination of market.
Maybe those of you watching who are already, the pads are full as well.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
Well, that is the other problem with, since they put the cheese wheel into Vespa M4, we do get a lot of belugas and whatnot, rock docking, just NPC for ships, so they do interfere with gameplay sometimes.
So that's just NPCs doing their thing, right? So I'm gonna sit outside and just watch, because I think that's going to be most amusing. Just making sure my ship is not moving. I think that's good. I think it's the space station's just rotating. So
Right, rival horseman, can you get somebody who is instance with Drew in your group so that you can all instance in to Drew?
See if we can break all of the instancing, break all the servers at the other end. Frontier probably won't be very happy with it, but there we go, never mind.
So when the game finally launched, I actually did a 14-day charity stream for special effect over Christmas.
Oh right, yeah.
Just directly after launch, or a month after launch, we did it, and that's how most of the hammers actually gathered around. But yeah, we definitely fill up a zone. I've seen this so many times.
I can see a lot of NPC commands, lots of sidewinders now moving around. So people are beginning to try out the loop.
Yeah, you
which is
need
good.
to make sure you've got your headlights turned on so that you can, and you should probably get a bit closer so that you can actually see people.
Okay, where's the best vantage point? Is it?
I used to just sit on the lip, like literally sit down on the lip looking into it so that you can sort of see the toast rack, and then
right, let's do that then. Okay, so I'm going to get myself in position.
Also sitting there, you'll get a beluga up your arse at some point.
So if I sit on the lip here, I don't want to get too close because I'm going to ram. Ooh, there's some sticky up bits. There we go. I can sort of see the bowl there. Is that a good angle?
Just kind of still waiting for your screen to update.
I can sort of see.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and you can like move from side to side.
Yeah, so I can sort of see, and hopefully we can see everybody. So have you got to fly inside that? Double red ring. Is that the rules?
The rules are everybody get into your sidewinder.
Yep.
Everybody turn on your headlights so that we can see you easier. And just sort of like float with your shields on at the moment. When everyone's ready, we do shields off, 3, 2, 1, go.
Right.
And then everybody has to fly around, staying below the upper red ring in that bowl.
Okay. So
you've
those are the
got to
rules.
be below that. Sometimes you might get hit out of it, and you've got, it's down to the judge to say you're hanging around up there too long. You've got to get straight back down, because if you hang around too long out of trouble, then obviously you're going to be not in trouble. So
was this one of the first sort of Elite Dangerous sports? Because
I think it might be, yeah.
Because I mean, we played you could have played this right in the early versions of Elite, right? Before we had
we did.
Horizons Landing and all that kind of good stuff. Yep.
This was actually born the first. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Hammers in the audience, but I think that charity stream that we did, we ended it. So basically the charity stream over 14 days was me journeying to Slough and learning to play the game, and loads of people, we picked up loads of people along the way, and on the day that we arrived, 2 days before the end of stream, we arrived in Slough, and everybody was there, and it was a big party, and it was Christmas, and little party poppers and everything. And then we invented the demo derby. I basically said, there are so many people here, you guys should get in the bowl and explode each other for my entertainment, and they did. So
so that's awesome. So I mean, is this referenced in the book at all, or is this just something that happened?
No, this is something that happened spontaneously because I wanted to see everyone blow up.
Best way, really. Yeah. Definitely. That's awesome. So I mean, going back to the book again, what was the process for you of getting the book? I mean, obviously we had Michael Brooks, who was working desperately hard trying to, I mean, not only help us, right, but build a game as well, right? Because he was the executive producer of Elite Dangerous, right, at the time. Yeah, and he was. I mean, I was giving him a hard time, saying, "Come on, Michael, where's my star map? I need to know how this is all going to work." And the star map became a thing, right? And that's I ultimately used the star map as defining exactly how long a frontier soon was, because he basically said, it'll be coming soon. So I started the clock timing at that point, and it was like it's about 9 months.
Well, I think I was in a better position than you, because the couple of points where I needed, you know, sort of like points of reference in geography, and where, you know, how long is it going to take to get from here to here, or, you know, where physically are things, they weren't, the detail of them wasn't so integral to the plot line that I couldn't carry on writing the plot line. So there were a couple of chunks that I've just sort of like put brackets around and said need to fill that in when you know, when I get that information. But ultimately my story was about the character and her kind of journey, which doesn't happen on a grand scale like yours. It, you know, it kind of happens within her own little world, and within, you know, she barely even leaves Vesper Four. So I think it was a bit easier in that respect.
I must admit, I did, when I was plotting my book, I was doing I did design a plot that I could sort of lift in and out of the Elite Dangerous universe without too much trouble. You know, it was sort of a political shenanigans kind of plot, right? You know, and you know, bad, you know, skullduggery and underhandedness, all that kind of good stuff. But the bits I needed were basically some of the wares and, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So for right up until about the last few weeks, I had insert square bracket Imperial World TBD close square bracket in the script, right? I kept saying to my
kind of breaks the immersive flow of writing as well, doesn't it? When you can't actually call things what they are.
So yeah, that was the thing. But I mean, what was the approval process from your perspective, getting the, you know, sending the final version off to Frontier and getting it back with a yeah, it's okay. Yeah, what did that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have as hard a time as everybody else, I think. I think because there aren't technical details. I mean, but there's very really little in there other than a couple of sort of space combats that would say, oh, this is happening in the game of Elite. So there wasn't that much for him to check. Because of a lot of it happened kind of like within the space station or within a, you know, and that's all up for grabs. There's no kind of there's no direction from Frontier on what that would be like. He did actually have a problem with me initially. He came back because right in the beginning of my book, I explain about the zero gravity training that the young kids used to have to do to be able to work down in the penal colony under the great gravitational pressure. And he wrote back and said, I've actually, you wouldn't be able to spin a person to that many Gs because they would, I think I had like 9.5 Gs or something, because they wouldn't survive it. And I'm like, actually, I did quite a lot of research on this, and NASA used to do it. NASA used to spin, and the description that I write was actually something that occurred to me as I was reading this article.
So did you get one over on Michael Brooks then?
I did. And I pointed him to the article, and it was from a scientific journal, and he was like, "Oh, okay."
he's very. I mean, to be fair to Michael, is, you know, he loves his accuracy, but yeah, if you catch him out, then he just puts his hands up and goes, "Okay," doesn't he?
No, and honestly, I'm glad that there was somebody who was that much of a geek over all this stuff to care about it too, because the worst, you know, the one thing you don't want to do when you're writing a book for massive fans of a game or any kind of popular fiction kind of popular culture kind of thing, you don't want to get something really wrong, because then everyone's going to hate you.
Yeah, well, this is what I was worried about, right? Because when I first looked at the Kickstarter, I was like, oh, Elite, I know Elite like the back of my hand. I played it for ages and ages and ages. And then somebody on my Kickstarter said, so what are you going to do about the other two Elites? And I was like, other two Elites? What's he on about? I was like, oh God, yeah, there were some other Elites. What are they like? I'd completely forgotten, which sounds dreadful. And I said, oh, I better go and dig those out, find what they're about, and go and play them. And I had to go and learn about, you know, Elite Frontier 2 and Frontier First Encounters and refresh. I did remember them actually, but I had to go and refresh my memory of what was going on there. And because we didn't know right at the beginning, right, that Elite Dangerous was going to be a sequel to, you know, all three in the saga, right? Some people said maybe it would just be off the first Elite. But it wasn't. It follows on kind of lore-wise chronologically from all the other games, which means, of course, that you know, there's a lore of timeline and story and everything that goes on. Because we got some sort of insider information, didn't we? we're not allowed to talk about it too much, but
Yes.
yeah, we got all these
Yeah.
writers' guides, didn't we, that told us how stuff was going to work, which was
we
quite
had
cool.
to sign NDAs and
That's it.
yeah.
So
It looks like you've. Oh dear, somebody's already exploded.
I just saw that. Yeah.
Looks like you've got a good crew of
So
people.
there's a whole bunch of people. So I think we should start the first game, actually, shouldn't we?
Who was it who exploded though? I
don't
think
know.
they're just going without you.
Yeah, maybe they are. So I mean, let's. If I can call order here on my stream, let's. Anybody who is in the Sidewinder, can we? What do? Do you line up on the start line, or do you sort of just hang in
No,
space?
you just get yourself hanging in underneath the
Okay,
upper
so
red.
everybody who's in the, what is it? A dish,
Everybody
the bowl?
sort of being
What do you call it? The arena?
Yeah, the bowl.
Yep. Okay. Everybody who's got a Sidewinder who's in the bowl, get yourself underneath the red line. Once I see enough people in that position, I will. Well, I mean, you can do a 3, 2, 1. You're the guest, Kate. You can do it. So
Okay.
let's get them. Let's get them in place. I'm just having a
I
look.
normally say anybody not ready.
Yeah.
You have the chance to.
Right. I can see Sidewinder's now getting into position. So let's see how
Okay.
let's see how this goes. Right. Okay.
Everybody,
Yeah.
there is no glory in staying out of trouble. One last person, commander
That's
standing.
right, so
make
shield-
sure
shield-
the shields are off.
Shields are off. The shields are off, everybody. Yep. It's
Shields
hull.
off,
It's
lights
hull
on.
only. Hull light. Yeah. Lights. External camera lights on. I think there's stack loads of ships sitting there. So
3, 2, 1, go!
engage.
So just fly at each other.
Yep. And you're trying to ram each other and get rid of it and kill each other. I can see people spinning around. Excellent. Right, they're off.
No,
They're definitely off.
You're supposed to be shoutcasting it now.
Oh, someone's died already. There we go.
You're supposed to be targeting them. And
Oh, I've got to target them. Right. Okay. That's who we've got. That's who we've got down here. We've got
somebody's caught in the.
Yeah,
oh,
someone's died.
There's a commander's down.
Misty the First. We have Commander Stooges. We have Stephen Usher's down there. He's still alive. Commander Teal.
You can see how much health they've got as well. If you get them all. What I used to do
Misty
is
the
actually
First.
have them all pre-targeted so that there wasn't the scanning to complete.
We just lost somebody else there. Stephen Usher is struggling on the. Oh, we've just lost Stephen Usher. He's gone. Commander Shipslayer is there. He's in my wing, so he's my favourite to win, I think.
Oh, and there's somebody else who's gone off. Oh.
Misty the First is still there. Who else have we got? Yeah, someone's flying around very fast at the back there. Commander Frank. Misty the First is still doing well. Who have we got left? Commander Stooges is still there.
hole they've got left.
Right, so we've got Commander Shipslayer is at 50%. We have Commander Stooges who has 25%. Commander Athelian Sorn is at 90. He's doing well. Commander Shipslayer is at 46. They're all going round. We've got a couple over here stuck by the edge. Commander Teal is at 27%, I think, licking his wounds. Oh, there goes somebody else. I just lost them. Just about to target them, and they've gone. Very much. Commander Kelvinator's down there. Commander Kelvinator is 8%. Oh, let's follow him. He's not going to last much longer.
4%. Somebody's at 4% there.
1%. I think that's boom. There we go. There's another one down. We've got looks like 3, maybe 4. Yeah, 4 left in there at the moment. So who's going to be the winner? Commander Shipslayer is 28%. We have Commander Teal with 0. He's just lost it. Athelian Sorn is 84. He's doing very well. And
He's taking the slow kind of
Commander Misty's at
central, staying out of
4%,
trouble.
so that's not good. So there's lots of debris flying. We've got. So now they are being a bit naughty here. They're not staying around near the edge, so they need to get back out to the edge. Otherwise, I may have to disqualify some people.
No, they can go in. No,
Oh, they can
no,
go into the centre. Right. Okay. No,
Yeah.
that's all part of the rules,
The
right?
problem is if you're too close to the centre, you can get sucked into the toast.
Oh, the
rack
toast
as well.
rack,
So
right, okay,
there is
so-
a negative side to that strategy.
Right. So we have
But if
3.
you're-
We have 3 left. We've got Commander Shipslayer on 28. We have Misty the First on 4%, so he's looking like 1 hit and he's out. And Athelian Sorn is on 68%, so he's oh, that was close. So tension's now running high. We've got the 3 left.
If you're up against somebody who's using the strategy of sort of staying tight, then you just stay tight as well.
That's the trouble, isn't it? Yeah. So is there a Is there a timeout on it, or is it just literally to the death?
No, keep going until
Somebody
eventually
does.
one of them will get bored of going around in circles,
Yeah.
and they'll try flying at each other, and
Yeah,
then
and then they'll decide
you
it.
know,
Right, so Athelian Sawn is
There's-
just holding
somebody's
position
running.
there. He's gone back out. He's jockeying, and there's a. Oh, that was close.
there's obviously no hammers left in there, because if there were, then somebody would have turned around and be going the opposite way now.
Yeah, yeah. So they're all behaving themselves
on.
very well, actually. They're all going clockwise, which sort of makes sense. Misty the First is still
Oh, so
sitting
he's
there
being chased
at
down,
4%. Ship's Lair is still there.
Eventually the audience will get restless.
Yeah, that's right. Come on, we
Start
want
baying
death.
for blood.
Oh, there's a bit of
Yeah,
there's a
we
bit
did.
of stuff
Marvin
going on there.
Darkstone. Marvin Darkstone, hello my dear. Just reminded, we did this in Anacondas in beta.
Oh really? Yeah.
Had, like, I think we had like 10 or 12 anacondas, and you could only just fit them in.
Yeah, the sidewinders are better in that sense because that's much smaller, aren't they?
And also, after one round, there was so much debris flying around that you
Yeah.
literally couldn't get out of the space station.
Well, the Anaconda had a debris model, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, someone's just bitten the dust. Who was that? Well, you've got Ship's Lair there.
No,
we've
you
got-
could. Oh, someone's gone yet.
Yeah, we just lost somebody. There's only two side. I
down
can only
to
see two
two.
sidewinders in there now. It's
You
actually
can
both of
start
them.
dive
Both of them are
bombing
in my
them.
wing. So Ship's Lair is on 68%, and Kelvinator is on 68%. So all
So it's
equal
head to
here.
head. Guys,
Yep.
you're going to fly
Yep.
at each other.
I think someone else is just. Oh no, Athelian Sawn is there. 24. There were three still in there. So now here we come. Trying to hit each other.
Oh,
Athelian Sawn just crashed into the side. I think. Oh, 9%.
yeah,
He's
that
got himself
happens a
caught
lot.
on the
You
infrastructure.
boost at the wrong moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happens. They get bored. See someone in their front.
Here we go. Oh, that was
Window.
close.
Boost at them and get themselves tangled in the superstructure.
So have there been any epic victories in this? I mean, there must have been thousands of them. I suppose.
Every victory is an epic victory. But I remember when we had Ed play one time, which was hilarious. When
Yeah.
we did a charity stream with them. But it's become a bit of a. I mean, I haven't streamed this game or even played this game in such a long time. But when I was, it became a bit of a tradition to sort of end Hammer Slough Sunday, and the
Yeah.
Hammers of Slough Sunday still happens.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep. So
Play
people.
P and DH and Nat's right, and I don't
Yeah.
know if Bubble's streaming anymore, but I know Nat sometimes does. It's kind of evolved. We do buggy demo derbies as
Yeah.
well on.
Oh,
on
the
Down on
SRV.
Planet
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we
Fantasy.
just lost Ship's Lair, so it's now between Athelian Sawn at 6% and Commander Kelvinator at 52%. So Kelvinator's got the advantage here. But
And what was they put a structure, an unidentified structure for a while outside Slough Orbital, and we started using that because it had
Oh, okay.
tubes that you could fly down. I can't remember what we invented the game, but we called it.
oh, there we go. The last one's just died. We have a winner. Commander Kelvinator is the winner with 9%. No, he's just died as well.
Yay!
Oh well, congratulations! There we go. The first inaugural round.
Oh yeah, we invented hungry haulers.
Hungry haulers. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
that was that. So that's collecting junk out dropped in space without shields, and people blow each other up doing that as well. So yeah, we actually did the Sidewinder Sports Day a few times for charity.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the elite community way back in '84 was a thing in the playground, right? And then it came alive in the Kickstarter. We all sort of found each other through the Kickstarter in some ways, didn't we? And then we've all. I mean, I've made contact with so many people that are big fans of Elite that I'd never have found if the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter hadn't been a thing. And met more through writing the books and having people then send you emails because of the book and all those kind of things, and felt privileged to be a part of the whole Elite Dangerous story, right? Because as a kid it was a very influential thing on me, and then being able to be part of it later on was amazing. Yeah, amazing privilege to me. And the game's now been around for 6 years now. I must admit, I've come and I've gone hot and cold a little bit on Elite Dangerous over the years myself. I mean, Do you think it's you know, it's changed and moved on in a way? I mean, you say you haven't played it so much recently. Is that just because you've been busy doing other things, or is it you know, the novelty's worn off a bit and there's other things to do, or how do you sort of perceive the game now?
I think for me, I think they've tried to make it everything to everyone, and in doing so, it doesn't quite do everything for me.
Yeah.
And I think maybe quite a lot of people feel the same in some ways. I think you have to choose your market perhaps a bit more, in a bit more of a defined way. It's beautiful, you know, and it's really lovely, and the exploration's great.
Yeah.
But I kind of had done what I wanted to do and got interested in another game. And then when they did some major updates, I was like, oh, I looked back again, and it was so difficult. And they changed everything. They changed all of the structure of the way that the mapping of the, you know, and the kind of like getting your ownership of areas, and, you know, reputation, and everything was different.
Yeah.
And I essentially had to learn it sort of from scratch, and I just was kind of like, I can't really be bothered to do that again.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to learn, right? And even if you're dipping in every so often, there's like, oh, you've got to have that work.
Yeah, so I wish they hadn't made it so that people who'd already been playing it for a couple of years would have to learn everything from scratch again. I may still be playing it occasionally if they did that, but I'm not the kind of person who will only play one game.
No.
And I tend to binge different things. So you know, I'll play this for 6 months, and then people who, you know, followed me on Twitter and Twitch will know I got back into 7 Days to Die recently. But that's great, and they've done a whole load of updates to 7 Days to Die, and there's loads of new content, but I wasn't backwards from where I was before. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have to get myself back to a point where I could start playing again. And that for me was the problem that put me off Elite, was that there was so much to do to just get back to where I was that I just didn't have the heart.
I must admit, from my perspective, I found it's changed in curious ways, because I mean, when I was, you know, when you and I were writing the books early on, like you say, Michael Brooks was all over the detail, right? You know, like you say, you're getting challenged on, you know, the gravity and stuff, and it's good that you've got one over on them on that. I'm really pleased about that. But I mean, I got a couple of emails from David Braben when I sent him my solar system design, and he said, well, you can't have that because a G-type, you know, a so-and-so M-type star at that range wouldn't have a planet of that type forming at that distance. So I was thinking, oh god, this really is a little bit intense, right? And which was kind of good, because I kind of thought, well, at least they're taking, like you say, they're taking the story and the structure of the game incredibly seriously. And David Braben is known to be quite a geek on astronomy things, right? But you know, and I thought, fantastic. You know, that was quite cool. But sorry, you were about to say.
Yeah, I have to confess though, that was my gripe about Slough itself, the planet.
Yeah, you said, because you say it doesn't look how it's supposed to look. I'm just going to see if I can find it on the stream with it, because it was out. There it is. Yeah.
The book specifically describes it as having a purplish hue, kind of looking overcast and drab, and that's not what that is.
And it looks like a lovely place to go. The only time Slough's ever looked nice.
And I said to I did point this out, because I'd said to Michael previously, you know, being quite clear, these are the only requirements I have, and one of them was that Slough look like this. And was that game started, and I went, oh, that's not.
Was that missed? Do you think, or do you think it was? You know, the game can't actually do that, or what do you think?
I don't know. I didn't. I said to him when I was in the game, I was like, wrote to him and said, but Slough is supposed to be like this, and he was like, yeah, sorry. That was it. It was just kind of, that's because I wasn't really given a.
Yeah, I've actually got the same problem with my system, because my system's the Prism system, which we're going to visit in a few weeks' time on a little tour. The main planet is correct, but the main locale in my story is actually a habitable moon. It's not a planet, strictly speaking, but the moon, if you like, is okay. It looks exactly like Slough. Actually, it's supposed to be a nice planet, right? That you can actually, it's got nice views and oceans, and you know, it's the sort of place you would want to spend a vacation. But the main planet it goes round is supposed to be a total water world, right? But in the game, it's a high metallic planet, and it's not like you've got water worlds in the game. I know you've got water worlds. And so, and it's like, and I think I asked Michael Brooks the same question. I think I got the same sort of
well, you know.
Never
sorry.
mind, eh? Yep. But
yeah, never mind, eh?
But everything else in the solar system was correct, because I'd named all the planets and they got all those right. And the order of the planets and all those kind of things, and little things like that.
Maybe it was harder to change the composition of the planet from a seed.
Yeah, I've got the feeling they can override things to a certain extent, but they've got some limitations in it. Maybe that was part of the problem. So the other question, I mean, obviously after all this time, what do you think? One of the reasons I'm doing this law thing, right, is because nobody else is. I mean, there've been that YouTube videos on the law from all the wonderful people like Obsidian Ant and some of the other kind of really well-known YouTubers and stuff. But and Frontier were going to do one, right? But they did one episode of it and then sort of stopped. And I thought, well, I planned to do one anyway because I really like them. But it seems now that the emphasis on the story and everything has kind of has drifted away a bit. Galnet no longer is a thing; it's been shut down. The CGs that we all used to kind of take part in have kind of all disappeared, and all the attention has been focused on this kind of weird new era thing that's supposed to be coming at the end of the year, which we really don't know anything about. And it feels like to me, the sort of rich legacy, if you like, of all that story that we had growing up from the 80s, all the way through the Elites, is sort of almost fizzled out, and it's kind of like a bit weird. I mean, people come and go, obviously, at developing games developers as well, but it does feel a bit like it's kind of drifted away. And Michael Brooks isn't involved in it anymore, so all that kind of old guard crew, including you and me, is not there.
I'm just watching on your stream an anaconda.
There's an anaconda flying around
with a sidewinder. The sidewinder just took a hell of a beating. It's going again. Oh no!
It's still there. Excellent.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think as well. I don't know. I might get crucified for this too. They didn't seem to go all in with the story.
Yeah. Yep.
Right from the very beginning of Elite Dangerous. There wasn't they didn't provide a solid platform. Lots of writers provided, great books, but they weren't integrated in a sense, in an immersive sense, into the game. So unless you read the books, they weren't part of the
they almost had an Elite Dangerous flavour to them rather than being utterly embedded in the thing.
But also, but they were fully Elite Dangerous. But if you didn't read the books, Elite Dangerous didn't have that story anywhere. That's the
exactly.
point.
Yes. That's a very good way of putting it. We were trying to bring the game to life, really, weren't we?
Right. And I think maybe because they had the author's fiction, they felt that they didn't need to concentrate so much on building a story for people.
Yeah, well, maybe that's true.
So it's kind of, it never felt like why were there never any little bits of CGI clips of people that you were communicating with talking to you? How hard would it have been?
Things like that always struck me as, one of the things I was really excited about early on, because David Braben was the master of procedural generation, right? He impressed us back in '84 with the graphics of the Cobra, and he impressed us with the galaxy that wouldn't fit inside, inside the memory. And then on the later versions, there was an entire galaxy on a single floppy disk, and all these sort of clever procedural generation things. And they were talking about using procedural generation to create ongoing missions in the game, so the game could actually generate amazing sort of content of itself. And what we seem to have ended up with, and what I hear a lot of complaints about, is that the game is very sterile. It looks amazing, it sounds amazing, the visuals in it are kind of unparalleled. The space stations are a glorious thing. I mean, we can see it rotating in front of us. The ship design's amazing. Even the flight model, the way that it does give you the old Elite kind of dogfight in space feel, but you've got the flight assist off, so you can do clever maneuvers and all that kind of good stuff. And it that's an amazing, clever piece of design as well. But the general sense of being in the game feels lonely.
It's a flight sim and a market kind of a market sim, market forces sim, and a virtual kind of Meccano set.
Yeah, yeah.
Or virtual model building.
Whenever I play, I mean, I love doing these streams, and I love talking to people like you about it. And you know, we all have the books and the lore and the story in common, and we've all been part of the Elite Dangerous story, right? But there's this nagging sense at the back of my mind that there's an opportunity has been missed. It's great, but it hasn't quite achieved greatness, and it had the potential to achieve greatness. Maybe that's sort of the best way I can articulate it. I think. I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's achieved success with the people who knew it and loved it as it was, and for us, you know, this is an upgrade. But if you're trying to invite new audiences to enjoy the game who've never played Elite and don't have that kind of personal affinity with it, you need to give them something of more production value as they expect from games. You know, you pay 30 quid for a game, you expect to get a cinematic sequence, you expect to expect to get these kind of rich, highly produced elements that, and whether that's good or bad, that's the way it is. So you're either going to attract a mass audience and it'll achieve greatness, in which case you do those things, or you keep it pure and you keep it to what its intent was, and you accept that your audience is only ever going to exist
at a certain size,
within a certain section of people who are interested in the mechanics and the you know, that side of it, and don't need the additional production bells and whistles.
There's a lovely cobra just parked in front of me called the Memoirs of Frontier, which I thought was quite a good name for a ship.
That's what you're saying. You know, you can't be everything to everyone, so you've got to decide: is that your, you know?
Yeah, and they seem to have.
Keep the core audience happy.
Yeah, they seem to have, you know, sort of changed their mind. I mean, right at the beginning, there was that real focus on astronomical detail and making the ships look gorgeous and the space stations and things. And then there was, you know, and there was story, there was Galnet, and then, you know, all this sort of stuff. And then some of the updates that came along were kind of more. You know, kind of, you know, things like the engineers, right? And it was all tweak a ship on, you know, do this, gather these materials, craft these materials. And it began to feel much more, you know, a bit more like Minecraft. Minecraft in space.
the elements that they added and improved, you know, first of all, it was, you know, sort of like the political play. They added the system. I can't remember what it was even called, but
power play, wasn't it?
Power play. And then they took that out, and then they added you know, more stuff for engineers, and then they added more stuff for miners and stuff, and it's all been responsive game design. It's all been what are our community shouting about the loudest? We haven't got enough for the engineers. So the next update has a whole load of stuff, and it's that patchwork approach of trying to please everybody who's playing your game.
That's interesting.
Gets you into a situation where you don't really capture anybody's heart.
I think it's interesting. I just get that nagging.
I agree with Overspark as well. Sorry.
What's that? Overspark. Maybe we'll move on to another topic. Yeah, we don't want to be too negative. That's a fair point. Yeah, no, we don't want to be negative because it's apart from this anaconda that's in my way now.
But I've loved what I've loved most about playing Elite Dangerous is the people that I've met and
I think that's
things
the thing.
We've done together.
Yeah, the community really is the the standout thing. The number of people, like you say, the number of people who I've met, and the cool things that you're able to do. I mean, you know, both of us were, you know, able to write books in the universe because of the fan base, right? You know, if we hadn't had our Kickstarters funded by people, then we'd never have done that, right? It wouldn't have happened. I mean, unless you had $4,500 sitting around that you could afford to chuck into these things speculatively. But and you know, it wasn't done for you know, vast profits and things. I mean, you know, it takes a long time to pay back $4,500 on a book. You know, books are not profitable things, but you know, so it's you know, it's the fan base, right, and all the people involved, and it's I mean, I've had with, you know, certainly the stuff that I've done with my books, you know, different factions in the game forming themselves up and making their own stories and their own lore. And even today, you look on websites like Inara and stuff like that, and they've got people are writing fan fiction about their own Elite Dangerous stories, right? And still doing stuff like that.
Yeah, brilliant that it inspires that.
Yeah, so it's nice to see people being creative and doing those kind of things. And there's still the expeditions again. I mean, I don't know if you ever went on any of them, but I went on the Distant Worlds 2 expedition, which was a massive trek across the galaxy, right? I got quite a long way actually. They gave me an honorary badge actually, which was jolly nice of them, because I didn't actually make it all the way, but I think they felt a bit sorry for me. I sort of began to run out of time doing it, but there were thousands and thousands of commanders, right, who traipsed all the way across the galaxy and then all the way back again. In the name of exploring this procedurally generated universe, right? Which is
I know,
which is an amazing thing.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's totally insane as well, but it is quite cool.
There's a question for Terra Firma's asked it a couple of times. Do you mind if I answer?
Oh, okay, yeah, no, far away. If there's anything you want to pick up, that's good.
Mostly Harmless your first fiction novel? It was actually the first one I had published, but I then got dusted down something that I'd written many years before, and my publisher, Fantastic Books, also subsequently published that, which is Bookkeeper's Guide to Practical Sorcery.
I was going to say, yes.
Different.
Yeah. So, I mean, did Mostly Harmless sort of springboard you into doing more writing? Because the Bookkeeper's one you'd written before, isn't that right?
Yes. And I mean, the only thing I ever wanted to do was be a writer. So
right.
I'd written the Bookkeeper's Guide to Practical Sorcery, which is, I don't know if you agree with me, but when, with musicians, when you get a band that becomes big, suddenly, in their first album is always their best album. And then the next albums, for the main part, the next albums kind of are not as good. And the reason for that is their first album is all of the songs they've been working on and had rejected and gone away and tweaked and had rejected and put into one album, right? And then they're asked to churn them out.
The tricky second album, they always talk about that, don't they?
And it's the same with books, Bookkeeper's Guide to Practical Sorcery was my first album.
Right.
Book it was the story that was in my head since I was a kid, and I kind of eventually got it down in novel format. I think about 10 years before it was eventually published. But when Mostly Harmless came out, Elite Mostly Harmless, I was just chatting with Dan, the publisher, and was just like, I have got this other thing, and he was like, I'll send it over. And he sent a letter back in August immediately going, we want to publish it, and I was like, wow. Okay, but
excellent.
It needs some work because I haven't looked at it for 10 years, and
you had to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff, right? Yeah.
I rewrote the whole thing, really, basically, because I'd learned so much about writing in that time. So yeah.
Well, I must admit, I found with writing my Elite story that I learned a vast amount about writing, because of course the great thing about Elite was it gave you a fan base of people who read your book, right, which is always a useful thing to have, and then you get a lot of feedback on what did work and what didn't work, and you get all the Amazon reviews, because you got a stack load of reviews on Mostly Harmless for Amazon, and then some of them people really love the story. You get the occasional one where people weren't quite so impressed, which and you've got to look at that going, okay, well, I didn't, it wasn't perfect, right, but I can improve my craft if I keep an eye on it.
Writing is like sculpting as well. I think you write something, but then you go back over it and you sort of shave off the words that aren't necessary, and you add a little bit more of a sort of a hump of description somewhere where it's missing something. So Chris Viking, thank you so much for remembering that. Yeah, I did actually, when I finished Bookkeeper's Guide the first time around, I sent it around to publishers, and I got a note back from I think it was Faber and Faber, saying we really like the style this is written in, but unfortunately it's about a trainee wizard. Just when Harry Potter was going crazy, and they were like, "There's only really room for one trainee wizard." So
that's a tough one, isn't it? That is a tough one, because I've got no beef with J.K. Rowling, but sometimes you just get to be in the right place at the right time, right?
It's also short-sighted, because I don't think I think there's room for more than one trainee wizard in the world.
That's tricky, isn't it? Because but for a while, I mean, before Harry Potter, everything seemed to be about vampires, right? Yeah, vampires were a huge thing, and then.
So why not make everything about? Like, there must have been loads of kids who were desperate for the next Harry Potter who probably would have bought it and
who could have
enjoyed
gone? Yeah, yeah. So it's I mean, maybe we'll be rich and famous one day, right?
Right. I don't expect that to happen through writing. That's not why I do it. I write to get the voices out of my head.
Yeah, because stories sit there in your brain, don't they? And they need to be told. And yeah, I mean, I've been working with a bunch of writers on Twitch actually, and we've just published a science fiction anthology, and then trying to encourage some new writers to just try their hand at things, right? And kind of we've just literally got that out, so that's quite cool. And a couple of them on the stream here as well, which is nice. And
the thing I found, the thing that really helps me is short story competitions. Not the ones where you have to pay to enter. Don't do those. But lots of people run just sort of short story competitions, or run one yourself. You set a challenge, get people to set you a challenge. Short stories are like the kind of chin-ups of the writing world.
Yeah. They give you a profile.
But also they get you tuned. They get your mind tuned for kind of getting a story, a narrative told quickly and concisely. If you've got a book, like you've got 60,000 words, there's a temptation just to see it as such a huge obstacle to overcome that you kind of can't really get started. But whereas a short story, 1,500 words, 2,000 words, I can do that in an afternoon. So I can sit down and go, okay, I can achieve that today, and it just helps get you into the flow of it.
Yeah, I mean they're very good, good ways of just, like you say, exercising your writing muscles, aren't they? Just kind of keeping those sort of things. So are you working on anything top secret? Anything that you can tell us about, or are you is another book on its way of any kind at the moment, or are you?
No, I have to confess, I'm actually struggling with. I'm having a bit of an existential struggle since the lockdown, because I don't think that the majority of my income in terms of paying off my mortgage and setting myself for the future comes from events, and I don't know that that's ever going to come back in the same way. So I've really wanted to do, and I've sat down several times wanting to do creative writing, but whenever I try and empty my head to write at the moment, it just fills up with all this. How am I going to pay my mortgage? What am I going to do? Not so much concern, because I'm okay at the moment, and I know I'm not going to sort of fall down a hole, but more just my mind going, what are you going to do though? What are we going to do when the money runs out, and how are we going to plan for that, and what new possibilities are there?
I found it. I can subscribe to that, because I'm self-employed as well, right? And you've got that uncertainty of how things are going to pan out, which like you say, in the moment today, there's food on the table and the mortgage is paid this month, and the electricity's still on, and all that sort of stuff. But we're all facing a kind of a novel situation here, and I think that's one of the hardest things, right? We don't know. Are we going to go back to normal in inverted quotes, or are we going to go back to a different kind of normal? How long is it going to be? Is it going to be extended? Is it going to sort itself out soon? None of us know, do we? We're all in this sort of slightly wacky situation, and it's definitely affected my writing. I try and open the laptop and I sit there and I stare at it sometimes, and the writing isn't happening in the same way. And I thought, this is, part of me was going, this is going to be awesome. I'm just going to have all this time to sit and stare at a laptop and go, I'm going to get everything done. But I've actually slowed down. They call it
the novel coronavirus.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a novel during it. Yeah, that's totally what's happening.
So, and a lot of writing friends have said the same thing. As they lots of things have been interrupted. You've got people, in my case, my entire family's at home, right? So that's the thing that's different for me. But in other people's situations, it's not. But the impact of the virus on our our emotional state, our mental health, or however you want to call it, is significant, right? It's.
And I'm here alone. I haven't touched another human being in over 2 months. I actually gave my hallway door a hug last night because it just looked like it needed a hug. So I just put my arms around it and gave it a hug, and it felt quite good actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's I went out yesterday to actually move my car and discovered the battery was flat.
Oh,
And
no.
I had to go, oh damn, I should have taken the battery off. And then I got in I charged it up and got in the car, and I thought, well, I haven't driven for a month, and I had to actually physically go, how do I drive a got again?
Right.
I got gear stick, gear clutch.
Actually going to. I am going to get how to be around people physically when we come back.
It's going to be weird, isn't it? I mean, and I'm actually a natural introvert, so in some ways I'm kind of, I go out for my dog walk first thing in the morning, and the world is quiet. There aren't any cars. There's hardly anybody else about, and I'm thinking this is really nice. And then another part of me is like, well, it just feels wrong, because there's nobody about, and you can't interact with anybody properly anymore because they're
TV
just not
people
there.
tend to be quite huggy people as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
So, and when I work with people again, they're going to come up for a hug, and I'm going to be like stepping back with my hands in the air, going no.
It's very strange. It's very strange. But let's hope it all things can recover, because we are in sort of uncharted territory really in terms of each other and people and relationships and the economy. All of these things are kind of all mixed up, right? It's a very strange time, and it came on so quickly as well. I think that's
Frank Miner's right. It feels like a science fiction movie. It does feel a bit like a science fiction movie. Thank you so much, Margaret Darkstone. I do actually have a zombie apocalypse go bag in my loft though. So I feel like I've been in training for this for quite a long time.
That's right.
I literally only, you cannot get bottled sparkling water anywhere at the moment. And I've literally run out of my hoarded stash because I've been.
It's weird, isn't it? So I must admit, I haven't run out of anything. Well, I mean, we're very lucky. My daughter actually works for the NHS, so she's actually got access to the supermarkets an hour earlier than everybody else, which is less of a problem now than it was early on. But it's she's sort of taken on the most of the shopping runs, which has been quite good. So we kind of work out a list of what we need, and she goes off and she goes off. Like, what's the film and the book? The Hunger Games. She goes off and goes, I volunteer for tribute. I volunteer for the supermarket.
Does she take a bow and arrow with her?
Yeah, that's right. Just goes off, comes back with bags, So she's totally victorious. So all that sort of stuff is kind of good. So no, it's a funny thing with books. Is those sort of things. So So did you ever consider doing a second book for Elite, or was it never something that really bothered you? Or?
Yeah, I've got a plan and everything. But I have not had any indication that they're open to or have the time even. And to be honest, I didn't ever pursue it in an aggressive manner because I was so busy with everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I badgered them quite a long time about a second book. Obviously, I ended up doing one, but
I think you have to push hard for that. And
I badgered them for a third one, but I think I ended up in the same situation.
Yeah.
Is that they never said no, but they never said yes, crucially, and I think that was.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just how much energy do you want to put into bashing them around the head to let you do it?
Well, that's right. And this is what I mean. I don't want to be negative, so let's avoid being negative, right? But I think I just think the emphasis has moved away, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. What we did for the Elite Dangerous game was a point in time, right? I tend to try and look at the years from sort of 2014 to 2016, 2017 maybe as kind of the highlight of the game from my perspective. Not everybody else necessarily agrees with that, but that's when, to me, all the cool stuff was happening. Everything was new and fresh and exciting. We had players, we had books, and we had that launch event, and we had the Frontier Expo and all those things, right? And ever since then, it feels like we've kind of, when you go to a really good convention and then you come away the next day and you kind of feel all, you kind of get that sort of convention lag. You sort of get the come down from all the adrenaline. It felt like kind of that sort of experience really. Maybe it's best to kind of look at that and go, that was a cool thing that we did, right? And just look at it as a period in time where we did cool stuff, and then let's figure out other cool stuff to go and do in the future, right? So I don't know.
And you've got you're prolifically publishing. That's not an easy thing to say. Prolifically,
I can't even say it. I can't say.
You're prolifically publishing.
I can't say it. So prolifically public. No.
Yeah.
What you said.
But yeah, no, it's good to see, and I've always been impressed and a little bit scared by your ability to get words down onto paper.
Well, the secret to what I do is basically I plan everything out to the nth degree, right? So the Shadewood series of books, which I've literally, the fourth one's just coming out soon. Fourth and final one, actually, I should add to that saga is I designed that story all in one go. So even though it's 4 books, right, it's actually only one story, and so
right.
I planned it out in great detail. So I knew all the characters, I knew who was going to die, who was going to live, who was going to have this happen to them, blah blah blah. Everything was kind of sorted out in my head, right from scratch, and I've just filled in the detail. And then the 4 books I've just written them from that template, if you like, until I got to the end. And because it was, and this is the good and the bad about writing for Elite Dangerous. The good about writing for Elite Dangerous, right, was that all the lore was there, right? You could just go and knock yourself out on all the detail and the ships and the lasers and the hyperdrives. It was all worked out for you. You hadn't got to do any work, right? And the space stations did this, and the space stations spin around, and the hyperspace works like that, and there's this on the ship and that on the ship, and you can land, and all that detail was there for us, and the alien races and the Thargoids were doing their thing, and all that background was there, right? You didn't have to do any of it. You could just write your story based on what Frontier had given you, and then that was that. So that was fantastic, right? Because that saves you a lot of time and energy building a world. But the only thing I found frustrating about it was there were certain stories I couldn't tell, right? Because they can't happen in the Elite Dangerous universe because of that's the law of Elite Dangerous. So I wanted to write my own set of stories in my own universe, but that meant I had to go all the way back to the beginning and invent everything from scratch.
Yeah, right.
And I wanted to do it with a certain amount of scientific plausibility, right? And that takes a long time. It takes quite a bit of energy. It took me a while to do that. So Shadewood has taken me 10 years, so it's not as fast as you think it is.
Is it your first album?
Yeah, Shadewood is my first album, definitely. So I would say it's the story that I always wanted to write. Okay, so I wanted to, it's essential. It's in some ways it's a character story, right? The science fiction is kind of by the by. And so is the sort of fantasy and stuff. It's a story of misunderstandings and jealousy and love and rage and anger and friendship and loyalty and all those sort of things. It's a character story, and the idea being that you don't know who to root for at any stage. You've got 3 main protagonists, and one of them I've sort of written such that you kind of have some sympathy for her, but she turns nasty, and then you're not supposed to have any sympathy for her, and then you think, actually no, she's more complicated than that, so maybe I should have sympathy for her. You're kind of, I'm trying to make the reader oscillate between loving and hating this character, right? And that's by design. That's kind of how the story is. But I wanted to write this story for a long time, and I was writing it back in 2012, right? I just got to. I'd been doing some Elite fan fiction just because I was enjoying it and mucking about. Long before Elite Dangerous turned up, and I was writing. I thought, now I'm going to settle down and do it properly. Now I'm going to write a proper book. And so I started on Shadewood 1, based after I'd worked out all the angles. And just as I was getting into it, I was about a third of the way through it when the Kickstarter happened. It totally derailed everything for 2 years. So that's one of the reasons that there's been such a delay getting this whole thing. So it's taken me. It is about 10 years from beginning to end to write 4 books.
Yeah. Cool. That's your keep aside. I look forward to reading it. I cannot start a story in 4 parts.
Yep. 4 parts.
Until the 4th part is available, because when authors make me wait an incredibly long time for the next installment of a book, I want to kill them, and I know where you live, so I have to wait.
So, and I know, and you do know how to assassinate people, right? So. So no, I've actually got one friend online who says, I'm not buying any of them, Drew. You know, it's a similar reason to you actually. I'm not buying any of them. So what do you mean? You know, you've got my other books. And he said, well, I'm not buying any of your Shaper ones. Well, why not? He said because the last author I bought a series from, I bought them without him having finished them, and he died before he got to the end.
Oh, no.
So he says, I'm not jinxing your Shaper by not buying them. I'm doing it to preserve your life. Because
yeah. Buy it when
so when all four come out.
Matter.
When all four come out, he's going to buy
dead.
them. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not planning to drop dead, yeah, honestly. But yeah, the thing for me is I've spent so much effort building this world for my own sci-fi universe that I'm going to set other novels in it, right? I'm not going to go back to the same place in Shadewood, but I'm going to sort of expand that universe that I've already got and then add other books into it, right?
Why not? Make it a franchise.
Well, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, because you know, I wouldn't have minded writing another Elite Dangerous book, right? But the door seems to be closed, right, for whatever reason, and you know, there's no point hammering on a door that's locked, right? But what I've got out of it is people quite like the sort of space opera stuff I write. Okay, so you know, there's people who hopefully, if I write a space opera sci-fi book, even though it's not Elite Dangerous, they'll go, yeah, actually, he was all right in the Elite Dangerous one. Maybe I'll give this one a whirl. So that's sort of my, you know, why not?
Exactly.
And I like writing spacey science fiction-y stuff. So you know, it's good, right?
It's good. It's exactly. Spacey science fiction stuff is great.
It's a very technical term.
Also, really good that you're a lot more eloquent than that when you're actually writing your books.
Yeah, I sit down and kind of think what I'm going to actually kind of do. But yeah, that's awesome. Oh dear, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's just been an absolute pleasure just to chat. I mean, we've spent 2 hours already, and it's we've covered all sorts of ground. But I really do
I
appreciate.
don't get to talk to humans very often.
Well, I'm glad you're able to come. We'll have to do it more often. We'll maybe come back for another one at some point. But,
And thank you so much to everybody for you, especially all the people who are in Slough and kept the flag flying for the Hammers of Slough. You guys are all wonderful. You know who you are.
And the space station, the space station is serenely sitting there, completely unaffected by the.
Yeah, if you look close enough, it's covered in just like scratches and dents from the years that we've abused it. But and to everybody watching and chiming in questions in chat, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I mean, it's the elite community is still a wonderful place, right?
They are.
And it's. I always go back and think to myself, it's a huge debt of thanks I owe to the elite community just at large, right, for giving you the opportunity to write those books back in the Kickstarter days. You know, we did a really cool thing, and we had some amazing times through the game, and we still have all the community friends that we've made, and Anaconda just keeps blasting past the screen and knocking sideways. And
they're giving you a chaff.
Yes, a chaff, which is beautiful. I mean, the game is stunning, isn't it? And props to Frontier for making such a beautiful thing for us to kind of play in. But and I'm just glad to have been around in those years of Elite Dangerous, right? I think being in there from the start, enjoying that Kickstarter excitement and the game coming out, and being able to write the books and take part in the lore, and have a there's a space station there. Which will forever be yours, right? It's Slough Orbital. It's Kate Russell's very own space station. And there's a planet over there which again, is your planet. Even if it isn't the right colour, we'll.
And every time I drive west on the M4, I get this little.
That's
with my heart. About 20 minutes out of London.
So there you go. There is Slough again, and I was going down the M4 before the lockdown, and I just remember thinking Slough. Oh, that's Slough. That's where it is.
You wouldn't. If I had £1 for everybody who tweeted me, texted me, or DM'd me with a photograph of this Slough sign, the Slough Junction sign, I would be able to buy probably my own car to go and visit that sign.
Probably by Slough. So that's an amazing thing. So I think Mostly Harmless is a fantastic book, and I would certainly recommend anybody not read it to go and read it. It's one of my favourites out of the whole lot, actually. Because I think you were the one who did the comedy book, right? Which actually one of my reviews is, I don't know if you've seen it, one of the reviews of Elite Reclamation, basically it says, bit thrown by the beginning of this story, it wasn't a comedy like Kate Russell's one.
Oh no, really?
Yeah. Because mine starts with a devastating, quite serious explosion and people die, right? So.
Yeah. No, yours is so. I was always a little bit kind of, had this kind of imposter syndrome about writing my book because I knew I didn't have anywhere near the patience or the knowledge to sort of make it as something that was detailed. So I very deliberately kind of just made it. I did what I did at school.
Yeah.
I tried to make people laugh to distract them from the fact that I had no clue what I was talking about.
but you hit a good tone, right? Because Elite Dangerous Elite certainly had that slightly anarchic
yes.
Douglas Adams.
I knew the kind of people who would be reading it. I think I knew quite well, and I knew what would entertain them.
Yeah, and you did a fantastic job. So I think you should be very proud of what you did with Mostly Armed. It's fantastic. But I definitely recommend everyone to go read it for them. And it's Audible as well, isn't it?
It is. Yes.
You read it, didn't you? Did you read it?
I did read it. Yeah. Yes, I did read it.
And you've got a cameo from somebody, as I recall. Who's
yes.
Talk a little bit about that cameo.
So right at the very end, there is a little cameo, a kind of a poem, and it was funny what you were talking about earlier as well about how long we had to wait for this version of Elite to come out.
Yeah.
David Braben agreed to read a poem which I wrote, sort of like echoing the Betjeman poem about Slough.
Yep.
But I changed the words, and one of the lines is about we wouldn't make you wait another 20 years. So he basically, it's a poem that bridges
the gap between.
I wrote a faux ending. I wanted to write the ending like a bonus track. So there's an ending, and then if you keep turning the pages of the book, you find this poem, and then if you keep turning the pages of the book, you find a final chapter.
There's an extra bit. Yeah, I remember coming across that, thinking that was quite a sneaky thing to do. Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny because I felt I was really writing for the physical response I wanted, in the murders and stuff like that, and I wrote for things like thinking like that, trying to sort of imagine the reading experience more than just reading the story, but what happens if you there's a blank page at the end of this book and then you turn the page, it's like hang on a minute.
It's almost like the extra little bits of movie you now get after the credits, isn't it? That's quite a thing nowadays in films.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, Kate, thank you ever so much for coming on the stream. Really, really appreciate it. Lovely to chat to you and sort of chew the fat over good old times, good old days, right? Yes. It's been good.
And well done for this. This is become a really popular.
I mean, I'm literally just doing a tour of all the old lore. I'm not adding anything new, but what I kind of realised about a year ago was there were loads of people who've come to the game since. We did all the cool stuff that we did, who may not know about some of the backstory. There were people who, what do you mean previous games, and what do you mean stories, and there were books for this game, all this sort of stuff. So thinking, it's worth going back and just revisiting all the cool stuff that did happen. And it's like you say, it's 6 years ago now. It's quite a long time ago, that's all part of the history and part of the lore itself. So, so there we go. That's kind of what we've been doing.
Well, here's to the next 20 years, people.
Indeed, yes. We'll be back for, what's it going to be, Elite Deadly or Elite?
It'll be Elite virus-free or something.
Elite. No
elite
longer
pandemic.
Elite lockdown, something like that. But, oh dear, never mind. Well, anyway, you take absolute care of yourself, obviously the best you can. So, and our thoughts with you whilst you're isolated, and hopefully we'll be out of it soon. That would be good. But thank you very much. For everybody on stream, we'll be obviously back next Thursday, where we're going to be talking about generation ships and hyperspace. So lots of lore stuff going back into there, and then onwards into the darkness we will go. So thank you very much to Kate. Thank you very much to everybody on stream. It's been an absolute pleasure. My poor Cobra getting bashed to bits here with all these side ones. So thank you for everybody who took part in the demolition, David. That was good fun as well. Thank you very much to the Hammers of Slough for hosting us, and thanks obviously to Kate for the creation of Slough and Slough Orbital. What a place to be in Elite Dangerous. The beating heart of Elite Dangerous as well.
Oh my God! If that's true, then it's due for a heart attack any minute now.
It's been awesome, brilliant stuff. Thank you ever so much, Kate. You take care of yourself, and hopefully we'll speak to you. And obviously, right on, Commander. Right, folks, I will sign off the stream now. Hope you've had a great time. Thank you very much for your company. Like I say, Generation Ships and Hyperspace next week, and we will go on from there. So hopefully we'll see you all then. Look out for Twitter and Reddit and the official Frontier forums for where we're going to be, and I'll give you some updates there as well. That'd be awesome. But until then, take care of yourselves, be good, look after yourselves. 07 and right on. You guys take absolute care of yourself. See you soon.
So there's the end of it. Quite interesting. It was nice to hear from another side of another author and their side of events. Some interesting opinions of Frontier in the game. Yeah, very good. And the Saudi derby, well, it's a shame I was in the wrong instance to Drew. I made a big mistake of of going shooting off and looking about the system, and I lost the instance, unfortunately. Otherwise I could have been in that Saudi derby in my own ship, but wasn't to be, so not to worry. But maybe next time. But yeah, it was pretty good. I haven't read Kate's book, but I may put it on my list. Yeah, I think I'll put it on my list. It sounds like it's a light-hearted, humorous look at Elite, not just as a game, but Galaxy as in a whole. So yeah, so I think we'll have a look at it. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe, leave any comments underneath, and subscribe at the logo top left, and to see the other videos, Elite Dangerous playlist, hit the logo top right. Chatty bye, folks.